Today, we're talking about something many men never admit out loud: how to make a woman regret losing you, not through revenge, not through manipulation, and not by pretending to be someone you're not, but by becoming the version of yourself she never expected you to become after she walked away. That's what this video is about: turning heartbreak into power, silence into strength, and distance into dignity. Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here because this is a topic I've seen play out countless times in my work as a therapist. Men walk into my office with the same look. You can tell they're carrying something heavy. A relationship ended, a woman left, or she stopped caring. And the first thing they always say is, "She moved on like I never mattered." But here's the part no one talks about. Women rarely regret losing a man instantly. Regret grows slowly, almost silently. It doesn't come from words, arguments, or begging. It comes from observation. When she sees you heal, improve, and rebuild, while she stays exactly where she was, that's when it starts. I've listened to men who hated themselves after a breakup only to come back a year later with a different posture, different mindset, and a life they were proud of. And every single time the regret came from the woman naturally, not because they chased it, but because they outgrew the version of themselves she walked away from. In this video, I'll break down the psychology behind that transformation. Practical steps, mindset shifts, and behaviors that quietly make a woman realize she misjudged your value. You don't need drama, you don't need to compete, and you definitely don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just rebuild yourself in a way that makes you impossible to forget. 1. Silence is stronger than words. When a relationship ends, every instinct in a man's body tells him to talk, explain, defend, or convince. I've heard it many times sitting across from men who felt blindsided or abandoned. They think if they can just say the right thing, send the right message, or prove their worth, she'll realize what she lost and come running back. But the truth I've seen over and over again is this: silence speaks louder than any speech ever could. Silence is not about punishment. It's not about pretending you don't care or trying to look cold. Real silence comes from acceptance and self-respect. It's the moment you stop chasing someone who chose to walk away. When a man stops talking, stops explaining, and stops trying to force closure, something powerful happens. She no longer has access to your emotions. And access is what makes people feel secure. When you remove the ability to reach you, the mind starts wandering. I've watched it change men's lives. A client once sat in my office convinced that texting her every day would show how dedicated he was. When he finally stopped, not because of strategy, but because he was tired of being hurt, everything shifted. The same woman who ignored his messages suddenly wanted to know where he went. Silence created a mystery that words never could. Women don't regret losing a man who is constantly available. They regret losing the man who quietly disappears to rebuild himself. Silence puts the spotlight back on you instead of her. It gives you space to think, to heal, to breathe. And it forces her to see what life looks like without your presence, your support, your energy. Silence also protects your dignity. Every time a man begs, argues, or tries to convince someone to love him, he hands away his power. Silence keeps your respect intact. You're not playing a game, you're choosing peace. And that choice is attractive, not because you're trying to make her jealous or curious, but because confidence is always silent. Desperation is loud. The most surprising part is that silence often brings answers without you needing to search for them. If she cared, she will notice your absence. If she didn't, you protected yourself from more pain. Either way, you win. Staying silent doesn't guarantee she'll regret losing you, but it creates the only environment where regret can grow. So don't argue, don't try to prove anything, don't chase someone who walked away. Just fall silent and let life speak for you. 2. Self-improvement is the real payback. There's a moment after a breakup where a man stands at a crossroads. One path is bitterness, obsession, and trying to prove she made a mistake. The other path is growth. And I've seen both. Men who chase validation almost always stay stuck, while the ones who focus on improving themselves create a life that naturally commands respect. That's why true regret never comes from making her jealous. It comes from becoming someone she never believed you could be. As a therapist, I've had men walk into my office shattered. They felt replaced, ignored, or discarded. And the first thing they often ask is, how do I make her realize what she lost? My answer is always the same. Stop trying to make her see and start making yourself proud. Because when a man becomes better for himself, people notice on their own. You don't have to post it, announce it, or show it. Growth is loud without saying a word. Self-improvement doesn't mean buying flashy things or pretending to be happy. It means fixing the parts of your life that you ignored when the relationship consumed you. Work on your health, learn something new, build confidence from achievement, not attention. The gym is not just about muscles. It's a place where discipline replaces sadness and routine replaces overthinking. Education isn't just for career advancement, it gives you purpose, progress, and momentum. Even simple habits like waking up early, reading, or setting goals shift your mindset from victim to leader. One man I worked with said he felt invisible after his breakup. He believed she saw him as weak and unimportant. Instead of chasing her, he focused on becoming stronger, physically and mentally. Months later, he didn't need her validation anymore. And ironically, that was the moment she tried to reconnect. Not because he sought her attention, but because his improvement reminded her of his value. Men underestimate how powerful growth really is. When you level up, you change the story she tells herself. You're no longer the man she walked away from. You're the man she didn't see coming. The version of you she left behind becomes outdated, and that creates regret not through anger, but through comparison. She remembers you as someone uncertain, emotional, or dependent. Now you're focused, controlled, moving forward. Nothing disrupts a woman's confidence more than realizing you became everything she hoped for without her. But here's the important part. Do it for you, not for revenge, not to prove a point. Because when growth comes from a genuine place, the results last. The goal is not to make her regret losing you. The goal is to build a life so strong that even if she returns, you're no longer sure she fits in it. That is the real power of self-improvement. Not making her want you back, but making yourself so valuable that losing you becomes her lesson, not your pain. 3. Rediscover your purpose without her. One of the hardest parts of losing someone isn't the breakup itself. It's the emptiness that follows. You built routines around her. You made plans with her in mind. Suddenly, everything feels quiet, and the silence becomes heavy. I've seen many men sit in that silence and convince themselves life has stopped. They think their story ended because she left. But what they don't realize is that this is the moment where their real identity starts to come back. When a relationship ends, men often feel like they've lost direction. Not because they were weak, but because they gave so much of themselves that they forgot who they were before love entered the picture. Rediscovering your purpose is not about proving anything. It's about remembering the man you were before heartbreak and becoming an even stronger version of him. I once spoke with a man who admitted he didn't know what to do with his life anymore. He'd paused his goals, ignored his passions, and planned every next step around her. When she left, he felt like he had nothing to live for. But as the weeks passed, something surprising happened. He started reconnecting with old interests, music, fitness, travel. He spent time with friends he hadn't seen in years. Slowly, he realized he had a life before her, and it wasn't just good. It was calling him back. Purpose is powerful because it gives you direction. When a man is focused, driven, and building something for himself, he becomes emotionally self-sufficient. Women notice that. People notice that. You carry yourself differently when your life has meaning beyond relationships. And here's what creates regret. When she sees you moving forward, when she sees you smiling again, when she sees you investing in your dreams instead of drowning in memories. It hits harder than any message or argument ever could. She expected you to fall apart. She expected you to chase. Instead, you rebuilt. Rediscovering purpose doesn't mean pretending the pain doesn't exist. Healing and growth can happen at the same time. You can miss her and still move forward. You can remember the relationship and still build a better future. What matters is action. Every new skill, every goal, every improvement is a brick in the foundation of the man you're becoming. And the truth is, once a man is living with purpose again, he often realizes he no longer wants the person who left. He isn't trying to make her regret it. He's too busy growing, too busy becoming the man he needed to be all along. Nothing makes a woman feel the weight of her decision like watching the man she walked away from rise, stronger, wiser, and happier. That's what rediscovered purpose does. It turns heartbreak into fuel, silence into progress, and loss into a new beginning. 4. Distance makes you mysterious again. There's a strange thing that happens in relationships when someone feels too available. People start taking them for granted. It isn't always intentional, but it's real. I remember working with a man who spent every moment trying to please his partner. He texted constantly, canceled plans for her, and made sure she always knew where he was. At first, she loved the attention. Eventually, she became indifferent to it. The effort that once impressed her became something she expected. And when she walked away, he didn't know who he was without her. That man spent weeks asking the same question. Should I message her again? Should I tell her how much I care? But something changed when he finally stopped. He didn't stop because he was angry. He stopped because he realized his life had to continue. And that was the moment the distance began to work in his favor. She wasn't used to silence from him. She wasn't used to not knowing what he was doing or how he was feeling. For the first time in their entire relationship, she didn't have access to him. That mystery made her curious again. Distance has a psychological effect. When someone loses access to your time, attention, and energy, they start to feel the absence. People don't miss you when you're constantly in front of them. They miss you when you're gone. The same woman who ignored his long messages started sending short, careful texts asking how he was. The emotional power that used to sit in her hands slowly shifted back to him. This doesn't mean disappearing to manipulate someone. Distance is not a trick. It's about protecting your peace and rebuilding your identity. When you stop chasing someone who walked away, you create emotional space for yourself, and that space makes you stronger. You think clearer, you breathe deeper, you make decisions based on logic instead of desperation. Distance also forces her to see you differently. When she knows everything about your day, there's no excitement left. But when you become focused on your own life, your goals, your growth, your peace, that mystery returns. She starts wondering who you're becoming. She starts wondering if you still care. She starts questioning whether she misjudged your value. The man I mentioned earlier eventually found himself again. He wasn't silent to make her jealous. He was silent because he was healing. He didn't cut contact to punish her. He did it to rebuild. And without meaning to, that distance made him attractive again, not because he tried, but because he transformed. The truth is, women regret losing men who evolve quietly. Distance gives you room to grow into someone stronger, calmer, and more confident. And when she realizes the world she once belonged to no longer revolves around her, that's when regret begins. 5. Build a life that doesn't need validation. One of the biggest mistakes men make during and after a relationship is living for approval. Everything becomes about proving something. Proving you're loyal, proving you care, proving you're worth keeping. I've spoken with men who admitted they changed their behavior, their schedule, even their personality just to get a woman to stay. They were constantly asking, "Are you happy with me? Did I do something wrong? Do you still want me?" That kind of thinking doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. And fear is the fastest way to lose respect in a relationship. When you need validation, you stop being yourself. You over-apologize, even when you didn't do anything wrong. You agree to things you don't like, just to avoid conflict. You allow disrespect because you're afraid she'll leave. But a woman doesn't regret losing a man who lived for her approval. She regrets losing a man who lived for his purpose. Let's highlight the mistakes many men make after a breakup. They send long messages explaining themselves. They tell her they can change. They ask if there's another chance. They ask why she's distant, why she lost interest, why she walked away. But every time a man says, "Please just talk to me," he is teaching her something dangerous. That his worth depends on her attention. That he will sacrifice self-respect for a response. And once a woman learns she doesn't have to earn your presence, she stops valuing it. Now here is the healthier version. Not a game, not manipulation, but strength. Instead of saying, "Please don't leave," A powerful man says, I wish you well. Instead of, tell me what I did wrong, he says, I'll reflect and grow. Instead of, can we fix this, he says, I accept your decision. Those words hold dignity. They show emotional maturity. They show control. Women don't regret losing a man who begs. They regret losing a man who respected himself enough to walk away with grace. Building a life that doesn't need validation means you don't look for a relationship to complete you. You build friendships, passions, goals, and routines that exist with or without her. When your happiness no longer depends on one person, you become stable, and stability is rare. When a man has purpose, confidence, and direction, he becomes naturally attractive, not because he's trying to be, but because he doesn't need anyone to tell him who he is. And here's the irony. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment many women start giving it. When she sees your life moving forward, when she realizes you don't need her to feel valuable, the regret appears. You didn't chase it. You didn't demand it. You simply lived in a way that showed her what she walked away from. Real power is not convincing a woman you matter. Real power is knowing you matter, even if she doesn't see it. 6. Confidence without arrogance. There's a very fine line between confidence and arrogance, and many men don't realize how differently the two are received. Confidence is quiet, steady, and earned. Arrogance is loud, insecure, and performed. When a woman leaves, some men swing to one of two extremes. They either collapse and lose all belief in themselves, or they try to overcompensate, showing off, posting everything online, acting like they're suddenly too good. Neither works. One makes you invisible, the other makes you look desperate. Confidence is different. Confidence doesn't need to be announced. It's the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you take care of yourself, the way you handle the breakup without falling apart. I've seen men go through heartbreak, and the ones who gain true respect aren't the ones who pretend to be unbothered. They are the ones who stay grounded. They don't try to prove anything. They don't talk negatively about their ex. They don't compete for attention. They simply grow. A man once told me he wanted his ex to regret losing him, so he started posting expensive things online. Clothes, cars, trips he couldn't afford, hoping she'd be impressed. What happened? She didn't care, and he made himself look smaller. That wasn't confidence. That was insecurity wearing a costume. Confidence is when a man says nothing, but his life still speaks for him. It's when he keeps working on himself, keeps improving, keeps building his future. Confidence shows in discipline. It shows in emotional control. It shows in the way you treat people with respect, even when you're hurting. A confident man never has to tell a woman she made a mistake. She sees it on her own. Arrogance screams, "Look at me, I'm doing fine." Confidence whispers, "I'll be okay whether you notice or not." And here's why confidence is what makes a woman regret losing you. A confident man is rare. He knows his value, but he doesn't force it on anyone. He doesn't need attention to feel strong. He doesn't need validation to feel worthy. He chooses himself without making it a performance. A confident man can say, "She left, and I'm still going to be great." He doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't argue. He respects her decision, and then he respects himself enough to keep moving forward. Women regret losing men who remain calm under pressure, men who don't break, men who don't try to replace her instantly, men who work on being better instead of trying to look better. And the beauty of confidence is this: it changes how you see yourself long before it changes how she sees you. When you know who you are, when you stand tall again, when you start living like you matter, the world responds. Sometimes she comes back. Sometimes life brings someone better. Either way, confidence guarantees you won't lose yourself again, no matter who walks away. 7. When you stop chasing, she starts thinking. There's a moment after a breakup where a man feels a deep urge to chase. He wants answers, closure, or a sign that she still cares. I've heard men say, "If I don't reach out, she'll forget me." But here's the surprising truth I've seen over and over again. Women forget the men who stay available, not the men who disappear with dignity. Chasing sends a silent message. You're the prize, I'm the one trying to earn you. And once that dynamic forms, regret disappears. A woman can't regret losing a man who never left, but the moment you stop trying to convince her, something changes. The power shifts, the silence becomes noticeable, and she starts thinking. I once worked with a man who called, texted, apologized, begged, and tried to stay just friends because he didn't want to lose her completely. He believed staying close would keep the connection alive. Instead, it made him invisible. She had no reason to reach out. He was always right there, waiting. When he finally stopped, not with anger but with acceptance, that was when her mind began to replay everything they had. She didn't expect his silence, and the human mind always chases what isn't guaranteed. When you stop chasing, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. I respect myself enough to let you go. That kind of emotional strength cannot be ignored. Suddenly, she has questions she never had to ask before. Where is he? Is he okay? Why isn't he calling? Has he moved on? Is someone else giving him the attention I once did? Men underestimate how effective distance really is, not because it's a strategy, but because it forces reality to settle in. While chasing keeps her comfortable, silence makes her confront the truth. She might have lost someone valuable. But stopping the chase doesn't mean shutting down emotionally. It means focusing your energy on life, not loss. Spend time with people who care about you. Build new goals. Pick up old passions. The more you invest in yourself, the less power the breakup has over you. And the more a woman sees you thriving without her, the more she questions why she ever let go. Some women will reach out. Some will watch quietly from a distance. Some will try to come back. But the outcome isn't the point. The real win is that by not chasing her, you stop losing yourself. Your confidence grows. Your peace returns. Your value shows. And that's when regret sets in. Not because you tried to make her feel it, but because she never imagined you'd stand up, dust yourself off, and become stronger without her. When a man stops chasing, two things always happen. He gets his power back, and she realizes what she can't control anymore. And that realization is where regret truly begins. Regret isn't created by begging, chasing, or proving anything. It's created when a man turns his pain into power. When you choose silence over arguments, growth over obsession, confidence over insecurity, and purpose over approval, you become a man she never expected to lose. Some women come back, some only watch from a distance, but the real transformation is inside you. The goal was never to make her regret it. The goal was to build a life strong enough that losing you becomes her lesson, not your burden. Heal, improve, and move forward. The greatest comeback is becoming a better man, not a bitter one.